I was wiping down the counter at the daily grind when I saw the bank notification on my phone. It was a simple email, the monthly statement for the business account I shared with my partner, Leo. The number at the bottom didn't look right. It was lower by about $12,000. I stopped, the damp rag freezing in my hand. We had a good month, a really good month. We just landed the contract for the new office complex on 3rd Street, supplying coffee and pastries for their grand opening. That payment alone should have covered our rent and then some. "Hey, everything cool?" Leo asked, coming out from the back room. He had a smudge of flour on his cheek and his usual easy smile. He looked the part of the honest, hard-working baker, and for 3 years I'd believed it. "The statement just came in," I said, keeping my voice even. "The numbers are off." His smile didn't falter, but I saw a flicker in his eyes, something quick and nervous. "Oh, that. Yeah, I meant to talk to you about that. The equipment loan payment came out. Bigger than I thought. The new industrial mixer hit us harder than expected." I nodded slowly. It sounded plausible. We had bought a new mixer, but I'd seen the invoice. It was $6,000, not $12,000. I didn't say that though, I just said, "Right, okay." I went back to cleaning, but my mind was racing. Leo and I had met in community college. He was the idea guy, full of big plans for a cafe that was more than just a coffee shop. I was the one with my feet on the ground, handling the books, managing the schedules. We balanced each other out, or so I thought. Later that night, after we'd closed up and Leo had left with a cheerful wave, I logged into the business account from my laptop at home. The password was the same, but I had a cold feeling in my stomach. I navigated to the transaction history and filtered it for the last 90 days. There they were, transfers I hadn't authorized. They were labeled cleverly: vendor payment, bean supply, equipment maintenance, utilities. But the amounts were wrong, and the recipient account numbers were unfamiliar. I cross-referenced them with our actual vendor files. None of them matched. I sat back in my chair, the hum of the laptop the only sound in my quiet apartment. This wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern. Small amounts at first, a few hundred here and there, then growing bolder. The $12,000 from the office complex job had been transferred out just 3 days ago to an account listed as LM Holdings. LM Leo Mercer. I felt a hollow opening up in my chest. This was more than money. This was the foundation of my life for the last 3 years cracking apart. I thought about calling him, confronting him right then. But the part of me that kept meticulous records, that planned for every contingency, took over. If I confronted him now, he'd have an excuse. He'd talk his way out of it, like he always did. He might even have a chance to cover his tracks. I opened a new spreadsheet and started copying the data. Date, amount, fake description, destination account. I worked methodically, my anger cooling into something hard and focused. By the time I finished, the sun was coming up. I had a complete record of nearly $45,000, siphoned off over the past 8 months. I closed the laptop. The trust was gone, replaced by a single clear thought. He didn't just get to do this. He didn't get to take our dream, our work, and quietly bleed it dry. I wasn't going to yell or scream. I was just going to make sure he paid for every single cent. I just had to figure out how. The morning light felt harsh as I drove to the shop. The spreadsheet burned into my mind. I had barely slept, but the exhaustion was buried under a layer of cold clarity. I needed to act normal, to give nothing away. Leo was already there when I arrived, humming as he unlocked the door. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air, a familiar comfort that now felt like a lie. "Rough night?" he asked, glancing at me. "You look tired." "Just didn't sleep well," I said, forcing a smile. "Maybe too much coffee." I moved behind the counter, starting the usual routine, grinding beans, prepping the espresso machine. My hands worked automatically while my brain churned. I needed more than just the bank records. I needed to understand why he was doing this and where the money was going. Throughout the morning rush, I watched him. Leo was in his element, chatting with customers, making jokes. He seemed relaxed, confident. That confidence grated on me. How could he be so at ease while stealing from us? During a lull, I decided to test the waters. "Hey Leo, I was thinking about our finances last night. We should probably sit down soon and go over the books together. Make sure we're on track for the expansion." We had always talked about opening a second location, a dream that now felt hollow. Leo's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Yeah, sure. Things are a bit hectic right now, though. Maybe next week." He turned to wipe down a table, avoiding my gaze. "No rush," I said lightly, "but it's important." I let the subject drop, but his hesitation confirmed everything. He didn't want me digging deeper. Later, when Leo was in the back inventorying supplies, I saw his phone light up on the counter. It was a text notification. I knew I shouldn't, but I glanced at the screen. The message preview read, the transfer went through. Let's meet tonight to discuss the next step. Usual place." My heart hammered in my chest. The next step, usual place. This was bigger than I thought. It wasn't just random theft, there was a plan involved. I needed to know who he was meeting. I finished my shift, told Leo I had a headache and was heading home early. He barely looked up from his phone, just nodded. I drove away but parked around the corner from the shop, out of sight. I waited for over an hour, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. Finally, Leo left, locking up. He didn't go toward his apartment, he walked in the opposite direction, toward downtown. I followed on foot, keeping a safe distance. The streets were busy with evening crowds, which helped me blend in. He led me to a sleek modern bar called The Vault, a place I knew was expensive, not somewhere Leo would normally go on his own. He walked in and I hesitated outside. I couldn't go in without being seen. Peering through the window, I saw him slide into a booth where a man in a sharp suit was waiting. The man had a confident, almost smug posture. They shook hands like old friends. I pulled out my phone and took a few photos, zooming in. The man looked familiar, but I couldn't place him. I waited for 20 minutes, my mind racing. Who was this guy? What was their connection? Finally, I ducked into a nearby alley when I saw them standing up to leave. Leo and the man parted ways with a nod. I followed the man this time, curious. He walked a few blocks to a parking garage and got into a silver BMW. I memorized the license plate number. Back in my car, I felt a mix of fear and excitement. I had a new lead. When I got home, I did a quick online search for the license plate. It was a long shot, but I had a friend from college, Mark, who worked for the DMV. I hadn't spoken to him in years, but it was worth a try. I called Mark, making small talk before getting to the point. Hey, this might sound weird, but I think I witnessed a hit and run near my shop today. I got a partial plate and I'm trying to id the car. Can you help? It was a lie, but I needed information. Mark was hesitant, but after I promised it was just for insurance purposes, he agreed to look it up. He called me back 10 minutes later. The car is registered to a David Ross, address in the Highlands. David Ross, the name hit me like a physical blow. David Ross was the owner of a local chain of bakeries, our biggest competitor. We had lost several catering contracts to him recently. Now it made sense. Leo wasn't just stealing for himself, he was working with David to sabotage our business from the inside. I thanked Mark and hung up, the pieces falling into place. Leo was bleeding our company dry to benefit a rival. The betrayal was deeper than I had imagined. This wasn't just about money, it was about destroying everything we had built. I sat at my kitchen table, the photos of David Ross on my phone. Revenge wasn't just about getting the money back anymore. It was about making both of them pay in a way that hurt them where it mattered most, their reputations and their businesses. I needed a plan that was careful, precise, and undeniable. I started jotting down ideas, knowing that one wrong move could blow everything. I spent the rest of the night researching David Ross. His bakery chain, Ross's Rolls, had 3 locations around the city, and he was known for aggressive business tactics. I found articles about him undercutting local suppliers and poaching employees from competitors. He was a shark, and Leo had decided to swim with him. The next morning, I went to the shop as usual. Leo was already there, pulling trays of croissants from the oven. The smell used to make me feel proud. Now it just reminded me of the betrayal. "You're in early," I said, hanging up my coat. "Lots to do," he replied without looking at me. "We've got that big order for the university library next week. I want to make sure we're prepared." I nodded, thinking about the university order. It was another lucrative contract we'd fought hard to win. I wondered if Leo was already planning to siphon off that money too. I needed to move quickly. Throughout the day, I watched for any signs of communication between Leo and David. Leo was on his phone more than usual, stepping into the back room for calls. I kept my ears open, but he was careful to keep his voice low. During a quiet moment in the afternoon, I decided to take a risk. I told Leo I was going to the bank to deposit some cash from the register. Instead, I drove to the Highlands, the neighborhood where David Ross lived. I found his house, a large, modern home with a perfectly manicured lawn. It was exactly what I expected from someone like him. I parked down the street and watched for a while. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I needed to understand my enemy. After about 30 minutes, a silver BMW pulled into the driveway, the same car I'd seen at the garage. David Ross got out, talking on his phone. He looked confident, almost smug. I took a few more photos with my phone, then drove back to the shop before Leo could get suspicious. When I returned, Leo was in the front, serving a customer. He seemed relaxed, which made me think he hadn't noticed my extended absence. I went to the back office and logged into the computer. I needed to find a way to track the money without alerting Leo. I remembered that Leo had set up online banking for the business, and I had full access. I decided to set up alerts for any transfers over $1,000. That way I'd know immediately if he tried to move more money. As I was configuring the alerts, I noticed something in the transaction history. There was a scheduled transfer for the following day, $5,000 to the same LM Holdings account. The description was equipment rental. We didn't have any equipment rented. This was my chance. I thought about cancelling the transfer, but that would tip Leo off. Instead, I let it be. But I had an idea. If I could prove that Leo was stealing and link it directly to David Ross, I could expose them both. I needed concrete evidence of their agreement. That evening after closing, I told Leo I was meeting a friend for dinner. He seemed relieved to have the place to himself. I drove to the vault again, hoping Leo and David might meet there. I parked across the street and waited. After about an hour, Leo's car pulled up. He went inside. A few minutes later, David Ross arrived. They were meeting again. I couldn't hear their conversation, but I needed to get proof. I thought about going in, but that was too risky. Instead, I called the bar from my phone, asking to speak to David Ross. When the bartender put me through, I hung up immediately. My goal was to see if they were sitting in a public area where I might record them discreetly, but from my vantage point, I couldn't see inside well enough. Frustrated, I decided to try a different approach. I drove to David Ross's bakery on the other side of town. It was closed, but the lights were on inside. I saw employees cleaning up. I waited until they left, then noticed a man who looked like a manager locking up. I approached him. "Excuse me," I said. "I'm looking for David Ross. Is he around?" The manager shook his head. "He's usually at the main location downtown. Can I help you with something?" "I'm from the Daily Grind," I said, using our shop's name. "I think there might be opportunity for collaboration. Do you have a card for David?" The manager seemed suspicious, but handed me a business card. "You should call his office tomorrow." I thanked him and left. On the card was David's direct phone number and email address. This was something. I now had a way to contact him directly, but I needed to be careful. Back home, I formulated a plan. I would create a fake email account, posing as a potential investor interested in both businesses. I could send emails to David and Leo, suggesting a meeting to discuss a merger or investment. If they took the bait, I might get them to reveal their partnership in writing. But that felt too convoluted and risky. They might not fall for it. I needed something simpler, more direct. I remembered the scheduled transfer for the next day. What if I could intercept that money, or trace it to David? I logged into the bank account again and saw that the transfer was still pending. I had an idea. I could contact the bank and report the transfer as fraudulent, but that would involve an investigation and might lead to legal issues, which I wanted to avoid since courtroom scenes are off limits. Instead, I decided to let the transfer go through, but be ready to act immediately afterward. I set up a notification on my phone for the transfer. Once it happened, I would confront Leo with the evidence I had, but not directly. I needed to scare him into making a mistake. The next morning, I woke up early feeling tense. Today was the day the transfer would go through. I went to the shop, ready to watch Leo closely. He was already there, acting normal. The transfer was scheduled for 10 a.m. At 10:05, my phone buzzed with the alert. The money had been sent. I took a deep breath. It was time to start turning the screws. I waited until Leo was alone in the back room. "Leo," I said, closing the door behind me. "I got a call from the bank this morning. They flagged a transfer as suspicious. Something about LM Holdings. Do you know what that is?" Leo's face went pale. He stammered, "Ah, yeah, that's the equipment rental company I told you about. It must be a mistake." "I hope so," I said, keeping my voice calm, "because the bank said they might freeze the account if there are more issues. We can't afford that with the university order coming up." Leo nodded quickly. "I'll take care of it, don't worry." He looked nervous, which was exactly what I wanted. I left the room, knowing I had planted a seed of fear. Now I needed to see how he would react. Would he contact David? Would he try to cancel the scheme? Either way, I was ready to push harder. I went back to the front counter, my heart racing. The game was on, and I was no longer just a victim. I was a player. After I confronted Leo about the bank transfer, the air in the shop grew thick with tension. He busied himself with unnecessary tasks, avoiding any real conversation with me. Every time his phone buzzed, he jumped slightly, then hurried to the back room to answer it. I played my part, acting concerned but trusting, focusing on serving customers and managing the front counter. Inside, I was calculating every move. Later that afternoon, while I was restocking cups, I saw Leo through the window of the office door. He was on his computer, quickly closing tabs when he noticed me looking. I knew he was scrambling to cover his tracks. I decided to give him enough rope to hang himself. I announced I was taking a long lunch to run errands, giving him the space I knew he'd use to contact David. I didn't go far. I drove to a cafe down the street where I could see the shop's entrance. Within 10 minutes, Leo left, locking the door and putting up the "back in 30 minutes" sign. He got into his car and drove off. I followed at a safe distance. He didn't go to David's office or the bar. Instead, he drove to an industrial park on the west side of town, pulling up to a warehouse unit leased by Ross's Rolls for storage. David's BMW was already there. They met outside the roll-up door, talking where they thought no one would see them. I parked behind a neighboring building and approached on foot, using the parked trucks as cover. I pulled out my phone and started recording video, zooming in as much as I could. Their voices carried in the quiet lot. Leo was agitated. "He's getting too close, David. What if he checks the vendor invoices?" I told him it was equipment rental, but he's not stupid. David crossed his arms, looking impatient. "Then make sure the invoices look real. I emailed you the templates. Use them for the university order. We need that money transferred by Friday. Once it's done, we'll stage the supply issue for the daily grind. A failed big order will bankrupt them. You'll walk away clean and start as my operations manager next month." "I never wanted to bankrupt him," Leo said, his voice low. "Just get some extra cash." "Well, it's too late for second thoughts," David snapped. "You're already in for 50 grand. If you back out now, I'll make sure you never work in this town again. And your partner will sue you into oblivion once he finds out, so stick to the plan." Leo nodded, defeated. They shook hands and David left. Leo stood there for a minute, rubbing his face before getting back into his car. I had what I needed, clear evidence of their conspiracy to sabotage my business. I returned to the shop before Leo did. When he came back, he looked pale and avoided me entirely. I didn't press him, I just let him stew. For the rest of the day, I thought about how to use the recording. Going to the police was out. I wanted a resolution that didn't involve lawyers or courts. I wanted them to feel the same betrayal they'd inflicted on me. That evening after closing, I went home and reviewed the video. The audio was clear and their faces were visible. I knew exactly what I had to do. The university order was the key. It was scheduled for delivery next Friday. Leo and David planned to use it to collapse the daily grind. Instead, I would use it to expose them. I drafted an email to the events coordinator at the university, Ms. Gable, with whom I'd built a good relationship. I asked if we could meet a day early to finalize the details, implying I had a special surprise for the event. She agreed to meet Thursday afternoon. I didn't tell Leo. Then I prepared a package, a copy of the video file, the bank statements showing the transfers, and a concise explanation of the scheme. I addressed it to the local business association and the editor of the city's business journal, but I didn't send it yet. I would only do that after I confronted them both in person at the meeting with Ms. Gable. I wanted to see their faces when everything fell apart. I went to bed with a sense of grim determination. The pieces were in place. Now, I just had to wait for the right moment to spring the trap. Thursday afternoon arrived, and I stood in the back office of the Daily Grind, checking the time. Ms. Gable was due in 30 minutes. I had told Leo that we were having a last-minute meeting with her to discuss logistical enhancements for the university order, making it sound routine. He had agreed to be there, seeming nervous but trying to act normal. I had also called David Ross's office earlier, posing as Ms. Gable's assistant, and requested his presence to discuss a potential long-term contract with the university, playing on his greed. He had confirmed he would attend. I gathered my materials, a tablet with the video loaded, printed bank statements, and a copy of the email I had drafted to the business association. I felt calm, my hands steady. This wasn't about anger anymore, it was about balance. At 2 p.m., Ms. Gable arrived. She was a sharp, professional woman in her 50s, and she smiled as she shook my hand. "I'm intrigued by this surprise you mentioned," she said. "Thank you for coming early," I said, leading her to a table in the corner of the shop. We had closed for the afternoon for this meeting. Leo was hovering near the espresso machine, avoiding eye contact. Just as we sat down, the bell on the door jingled and David Ross walked in, looking confident in his suit. "David," I said, standing up, "thank you for joining us. Ms. Gable, this is David Ross from Ross's Rolls. I thought it would be beneficial to have all key parties here." David looked momentarily confused but recovered quickly, shaking Ms. Gable's hand. "A pleasure. I understand there's talk of a new contract." Leo stared at me, his face pale. "What's going on?" he whispered. I ignored him and addressed the group. "Ms. Gable, before we discuss the order, I need to clarify some things about the stability of the daily grind. There have been attempts to sabotage this business, and I want to ensure you have full transparency." David's smile faded. "This is highly unprofessional. I don't see what this has to do with me." "It has everything to do with you," I said. I turned on the tablet and placed it on the table. "I have a video I'd like you all to see." I pressed play. The recording from the warehouse filled the screen, with Leo and David's voices clear. Leo's agitated words about the bank transfers, David's threat to bankrupt the Daily Grind, and the plan to stage a supply issue for the university order. It was all there. Ms. Gable watched in silence, her expression shifting from curiosity to shock. David stood up, reaching for the tablet. "This is a legal recording. I'll sue you." "I think you'll find that recording conversations in a public place where there's no expectation of privacy is legal in this state," I said calmly. "But more importantly, Ms. Gable now knows the truth about your business practices." Leo sank into a chair, his head in his hands. "I'm sorry," he muttered, but no one was listening to him. Ms. Gable turned to David, her voice cold. "Mr. Ross, the university will not be doing business with your company now or in the future. I suggest you leave." David glared at me, then at Leo, before storming out without another word. She then looked at Leo. "As for you, Mr. Mercer, your involvement in this scheme is deeply troubling. The university order will proceed with the Daily Grind, but only under the condition that you are no longer associated with the business." I nodded. That was already my plan. "Leo, you're out. I have all the evidence of your embezzlement. If you sign over your share of the business to me for $1, I won't press charges. But if you contest it, I will send this evidence to the district attorney. Your choice." Leo looked defeated, his shoulders slumping. "I'll sign," he said quietly. "I just want this to be over." After Ms. Gable left, with assurances that the order was secure, I had Leo sign the transfer papers I had prepared earlier. He left the shop without looking back. Later that evening, I sent the email with the evidence to the Business Association and the Business Journal. Within days, the story was circulating in local business circles. David Ross's reputation was ruined. His bakery chain saw a sharp decline in customers, and he eventually sold his locations at a loss. Leo moved out of town, and I heard he was working a low-level job in another state. I kept the Daily Grind running on my own. It was hard work, but the business stabilized and even grew after the exposure of the scandal, as customers appreciated the honesty. The revenge was complete, but it didn't bring me joy, just a quiet satisfaction that justice had been served. I had protected what was mine, and now I could move forward alone but secure.